What is considered a living wage in Colorado? Living wage has been a growing issue in labor politics and economic discussions in this country, particularly as unions and other worker groups began aggressively championing raising minimum wage over the past few years. When living costs in Denver and other Colorado cities exceed local wages, it prices workers out of their homes. Rising costs partially drove the push to increase Colorado minimum wage. However, minimum wage often fails to provide a living wage for Colorado workers. A living wage is the hourly rate an individual must earn to support his or her family when that person is the sole provider and works full-time. Living wage is not the same thing as minimum wage. Minimum wage is a minimum amount an employer may pay to an employee covered by the minimum wage law for work. Living wage considers the costs to that family to meet their minimum needs for self-sufficiency where the family lives. These costs change across regions rather than assume equal costs across the board. Note that a living wage is not a calculation of the wage necessary to live comfortably or move up the economic ladder. Living wage in Denver, for example, requires a single employee to earn $12.95, which is above the current minimum wage. If that employee supports another adult and 2 children, that number rises to $28.01, almost 3 times minimum wage. Colorado minimum wage versus living wage. Minimum wage laws began as a way to end sweatshops and require employers to pay a living wage. Generally, over time, minimum wage laws in the United States failed to keep up with living wage requirements. Federal minimum wage, set by the Fair Labor Standards Act, is far below the living wage calculated in most parts of the country. 29 states have state minimum wages higher than federal law, including Colorado. Employees earning the Colorado minimum wage may still not reach a living wage. Considerations for calculating living wage include home prices, rent costs, utilities, food, transportation, and healthcare. Although these are basic costs, they do not include many expenses that Colorado employees may face. Considerations for Colorado living wage. A living wage is not uniform across Colorado. Basic family expenses vary considerably across the state. For example, rent and home prices in Denver are far more expensive than most rural parts of Colorado. As expenses increase, so too does the living wage required to afford those expenses. Living wage is not always a linear increase with the urban density. For example, the Colorado Springs metro area requires only a slight decrease from the Denver metro area. Generally, however, urban areas are more expensive than rural areas in Colorado. An important issue in Colorado is that living expenses are increasing at a rapid rate compared to wages. Studies of government data reflect living expenses increase 3 times as fast as wages. You can easily see how this happened with the explosion of both home and rent costs compared to even the increase in Colorado minimum wage. Legal issues and a living wage in Colorado. If your employer failed to pay some or all of your wages, then you have rights to recover unpaid wages and other relief under federal and state wage laws. These laws may allow you to recover liquidated damages doubling the amount of unpaid wages, out-of-pocket losses caused by the failure to pay wages, attorney's fees, and court costs. Additionally, your employer may not retaliate against you for complaining about or reporting unpaid wages. If your employer terminates you or takes other legal action for complaining about unpaid wages or reporting unpaid wages to a government agency, then you have rights to recover for lost wages and other harm. If you believe any of these unlawful acts occur to you, then you should talk to an unpaid wage lawyer in Colorado right away. An employment lawyer can advise you on your rights and how to proceed to receive the wages you earned. Speak to an unpaid wage lawyer as soon as possible. Many wage claims have short periods that require you to act to preserve your claim. The longer you wait to talk to a lawyer, the more you risk not receiving the wages you earned.